Okay, we're going to get started. This is the ArtSurround Artist Cohort application workshop for this new program. I am Samantha Kimple. I go by Sam or any version of Samantha that you want to call me. I have been with Creative Sonoma since its inception, which we really got up and running by 2015 with programming. And I manage our grant programs and oversee our professional development programs across for artists, arts organizations, and also our arts education. I don't plan those, but I work on those. So we are here to talk about this brand new program. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to basically talk through the webpage. We'll take a look at we will take a look at the guidelines and the application briefly because it contains more information. I don't want to read that to you word for word. We're just going to hit the highlights and the purpose for this program. I'm happy to pause at any time for clarifying questions. So you don't need to hold your questions until the end. As we go, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or raise your hand and I'll try to keep an eye on you. And then the second half of it, I will take you into the actual application and go through it line by line to talk about what we're looking for in each part of the application, just to make sure that everything is totally clear. Okay, I will kick off with our website, which is creativesonoma.org/artsurround, all one word. I'm sure if you're here, you've probably already found the website. But this gives the basic overview of what this program is. It was born from various public art projects that Creative Sonoma has been involved with we received a national endowment for the arts grant 2 years ago that we ended up using for what we call creative reopening. And so this was a program that allowed towns and cities, and usually the grant went to their chambers of commerce, to bring artists in to help enliven their downtowns when they've been shut during COVID. And so things like how to artfully illustrate social distancing, or making sure that businesses are attracting the attention they needed to survive by bringing customers to downtown Santa Rosa. That was part of the street closures. And so the murals that you saw downtown such as this mural that's on my screen right now, those were paid for through a grant that Creative Sonoma received through the National Endowment for the Arts. And so we did that in 6 different places. We're also working on a number of processes trying to integrate. We're a County of Sonoma office where we are housed in the Economic Development Board, but working with our different departments within the county to let them know and learn how artists can help them achieve their goals: a safer community, healthier community, a more accessible community, more equitable community, and how the arts can play a role in that. And so that is the reason behind this program. Also, as we started to do more public art projects, we really wanted, what we found was the people from the Department of Transportation, they want people that already know how to work with the government for a major project and deal with the ins and outs of contracts, which can be very complicated. And so we knew that we needed to do more training for local artists on how to approach a government commission or work with a government agency in these programs. And so we had the idea that we really needed a training program. We happened to learn about Springboard for the Arts, which is located in Minnesota, but they provide a national training program, which I'll talk a little bit about. But it's really about community engagement. And since that has been such a huge element of a lot of the artists' calls for qualifications, calls for proposals, we are seeing a lot of requests for projects that include community engagement. So if this public art piece is being installed, what do the people living around it have to say about it? If it's a public art piece that is, for instance, in the Andy Lopez Park, and we're talking about policing, we're talking about community safety, how how does the artist work in community to help develop the piece or increase engagement with the piece. So those are the kind of things that we've been thinking about, and we would love to have a cohort of more artists trained locally, more diverse group of artists that are trained locally, to increase the ability of our local artists to get these commissions, both here and anywhere in the world. So there's so many opportunities out there, and it does seem to be the trend in public art. If you're here, you may have a sense of that a lot of projects include that in community engagement piece. And it could be as simple as you're promoting it on your social media, down to actual community workshops and actions and activities to help develop a piece. So that's where we came from. And so the two different cohorts, we already have an advocate cohort going forward. They're already meeting. These are the group of people in Sonoma County that are leaders of local government. They are leaders of chambers of commerce. They are leaders of all sorts of arts organizations. So we have museums, we have chambers of commerce, we have people that are actually hired to do public art within the cities, towns and cities that have public art programs. They're all participating in this. So they are learning. The ones that don't come from the arts world, they are learning from Springboard for the Arts how to engage artists to do their work. And so we are working with them to do that. They are taking their own training, and they will have additional training to expand their thinking too, for what they consider art and how they consider artwork to be incorporated into anything from messaging. When we think about like the need for resilience, environmental resilience in our community is such a high priority. Equity and social justice issues that have become so laid bare. How do you communicate a message of inclusion? And it's the arts. I mean, it's simply that message. Arts and design are what get the message across. And so whether it's a campaign, or it's actually a community event, or it's what people think of as public art as a sculpture, everything's on the table. So those folks are coming together, exploring what does art look like, but they are also bringing to the table sites within the county. So we are identifying public spaces that are in need of art. And so we are creating a list of places where we will be able to develop artworks through this process. And that's where you come in as the artists and cultural bearers. The artist cohort the people accepted to this cohort receive training. Receive training. So it is required that you attend most, if not all, of this training, which the folks will be here from Minnesota, will be here in Sonoma County. It will take place in Sonoma County over 2.5 days during approximately June 18th to 20th. I will do the final scheduling once everybody that is in the cohort. And so we'll make sure we can get everybody the days that we can get the most people there is when it will take place. And then the artist cohort, Creative Sonoma has money. We do have a pool of money to create mini grants for for these potential public art projects. And then the City of Santa Rosa Public Art Program also has a pool of money for grants to do public art projects in Santa Rosa. So that's another element of this application that I'll be sure to point out, because you're welcome to propose an actual project. We're thinking of this as an RFQ, like we want to hear about who you are, what you do. But if you have a specific idea for a specific work in a specific place, you're welcome to propose it briefly in this application. Because when you'll see the application, if you've already looked at it, we'll actually go through the application. You'll see you have the opportunity to let Santa Rosa know, I have an idea for a window installation at 435 4th Street, and describe it briefly. So you will have that chance to actually put that out there. And then once once the cohort is in, we will do the work of matching artists with projects, with sites, based on what what you do. And then you will work on your fleshing out your project in the training. So this is kind of an RFQ, and then we'll accept you in the program and set you loose on ideas for sites. Depending on how many sites we have identified and how many artists we can bring in, there is a chance that some artists will end up forming a team and work on a project together. That is one thing that Springboard for the Arts specializes in. They're just pretty spectacular with coming up with really innovative ways to do community engagement processes and getting artists to work together to bring forward their ideas. And so you will get a grant coming into this program no matter what. It'll be $1,000 to $10,000 depending on the site and the project. But some artists may end up working in teams of artists to develop something. That may be that you're doing your own piece at a site that has 4 mini installations. You know, it could be a lot of things. So we'll have more information on that once the artists are accepted into the program. So that's about the sites. Important dates. The deadline is in less than 2 weeks, on the 26th of April. The reason we had kind of a close, a short, it's been only open for about 4 weeks, is that we want people to know as soon as possible so they don't have to hold that June weekend. So we're going to try to make sure you're notified in early May, as early in May as possible, so that you are able to release that weekend if you are not chosen for the cohort. And then the projects we're hoping will be completed by December of this year, but that is really, it depends on the fund. You know, if there's an issue, it can always be extended. So that's not set in stone, but that's the goal, to have all of these projects installed, implemented, or performed by then, because we are looking at all types and all stripes of artists and culture bearers. Grants amount and features, we've gone over that. It's the grant, the actual money grant, and then the training. And then also we are looking at this cohort as really being people that really want to move forward with their work in community and telling community stories. And to have this cohort be quite diverse would be very exciting, as age, experience, race, ethnicity, background, discipline. So we're going to look at the ways that people can be informing one another's work. We have more people joining us. Let me make sure everybody gets in here. Okay, and so we'll be looking at that, the eligibility. So we are looking at socially engaged creative practitioners. So however we want that to be as open as possible for what that means. Traditional arts, your traditional fine arts, artisanal trades. So if anybody has any questions at any point, please send them to me after this. Today, I will be posting one or both of the workshops on our site, and I'll send you an email with my contact information and some follow-up with Springboard for the Arts. So you get to know what the kind of work they do as well, if you haven't already explored that. And this is for full-time residents of Sonoma County, age 18 or older with work authorization in the United States. And so we go back to that age and experience differential. We know that some people that have years and years and years of experience will join us, but we hope that they will help be part of a cohort to inspire and lift up the ones that are emerging and launching into this type of work at this time. And evaluation criteria, and this is where you'll see that this is not your typical public art project, where it would be artistic and you're technical competence and being able to work with government employees, which is what our typical call for qualifications or proposals is. Let's see. Hold on one second. We're having our translator coming in here. Make sure he gets in the room. Does anyone have any questions while I'm waiting for him to join us? You're welcome to unmute yourself or let me know. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, well, I'll keep going here until he gets here. So for the evaluation criteria will be community and arts peers, the people funding this, and then representatives from our program partners. And so the folks that are asking for public art on their property will be represented in the review of these applications, because they're the ones that will be living and breathing your work. So previous achievements, your technical competence, future promise in your creative and cultural pursuits, that's pretty open. Work that is driven by collaboration, equity, and reciprocity. And so we can do that. Hold on one second. I'm going to have to stop sharing for one moment. We have our translator here, and I'm going to start the interpretation. Hello, Ricardo.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. I started the Spanish. I started the interpretation. You should be set to go.
If you can hear me, I am not set as the interpreter.
Okay, hold on one second. Sorry about this, folks. Just hold up. We've been having technical issues the past few days. And it should be. It says you haven't joined yet, which is weird because you're here.
Probably if you click on my name
Update
in the chat.
Yeah, there we go.
And then.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There you are. Sorry about that, folks. Finish. Okay. There you go. Okay, we're all set.
I see it. I'll be there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to evaluation criteria, which is where I left off. I'll reshare my screen. Here we go. Okay, evaluation criteria. So I'll just start over again on that little section. Previous achievements, your competence, which we'll see in your work samples that you upload, and how you tell us about how you came to be where you are as a cultural practitioner, creative artist, which we'll talk about a little bit when I get to the application in just a minute or so, and your future promise. And so if you've already well established, that will be evident in what you share with us in your application. But those that are just getting started, there's an opportunity in the application to tell us about where you want to go with that work. Then the next part is work that is driven by collaboration, equity, and reciprocity. So this is once again getting back to working in community arts. Then the last point is ability to tell stories. This is a long sentence here that span issues and experience through artwork or creative process, and or an interest in building community ecosystems through integration of arts and culture into the public realm. And so that comes from, once again, me talking about how do we, for example, help a local health agency get their message out? How do you tell the story of need or inclusion in a community? How does your artwork or cultural heritage tradition further them in creating more awareness or excitement or beautifying a neighborhood? So being able to work cross sector, I guess, is how I would describe that. There's a lot of ways to get out that. I know it's vague, but we're intentionally being a little vague here. Being able to tell stories through your work, I think, is a large part, which basically is the definition of arts, but that's okay. We're naming it at this point. Any questions about that? I can look to see if anyone has their hands up. I don't see any hands and I don't hear any unmutes. So we'll go down into the application packet. I have opened the application. If you go down to this little header here, application packet, this is where you find the application in English and in Spanish. And you'll need to submit this no later than 11:59 p.m. on April 26th. I don't recommend waiting until then to do that. Please submit it in advance. If you submit it earlier, sometimes we will have a chance to look to see if you've completed, if you have anything missing. So the earlier you can get it in, the better. We do give opportunities to correct applications if there's something that obviously went wrong. We find a document if one of your uploads can't be viewed for us. We check to make sure all your links work. So sometimes we do open an application after the deadline to give you a chance to correct it. It's usually depending on when we let you know, it's like 24 to 48 hours after when we give you that notice. So if you let us know, oh no, I did something wrong, can you reopen my application? We can do that. You may utilize either the Spanish or English application, and we also welcome if your native language is not either English or Spanish, you're welcome to complete applications in your native language, and we will find someone who is fluent or a native speaker in that language to help us review the applications, as well as have it translated for our other panelists. So once you're ready to apply, and this is the actual packet that you've already gone through, I've touched on most of this. If you are reading through it again and have questions that you need any kind of clarification on, please let me know. I want to make sure I didn't get any of them here. I will touch really quickly on the grant funding restrictions. You'll notice that we've kind of called out insurance depending on which agency. So if you are chosen by the City of Santa Rosa Public Art Program to do a work for them, you'll be contracted by them. If you're funded, you'll be contracted by us through our pool of money. So depending on who is providing the funding for your public art project that you get chosen for, that's who will create your contract for you. So some of us have different types of issues. So you may have to provide insurance depending if it's a larger grant amount. There's a certain threshold for City of Santa Rosa. So we will work with you on each of those things as they come up when we get to the contracting stage for your project. Shannon, do you have a question?
Hold on. Oh, there, I'm unmuted. Yeah. My question, and I apologize because I did get on late.
That's okay.
and maybe you already answered this, but because I just saw this and jumped on, because I'm very interested. Anyway, but did I see something that is it City of Petaluma or the Petaluma Art Center is one of the, there's something in Petaluma itself?
There will be. We haven't called it out in the application. City of Santa Rosa is definitely in. They have, they are providing funding for up to 10 projects, I believe, in the city of Santa Rosa. And so we know that for sure. We also have participants from most parts of the county. And so what's potential is that, and I haven't seen the list yet, we're still constructing it. Hopefully there will be a site that is provided by either the city of Petaluma or someone, a private location within Petaluma, so that we can make sure that a project gets done there.
Okay.
So it is a potential.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Can I ask oh, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, the folks involved with their public art committee are involved with this as well. So I know we've had some issues before when we've done public art grants, pop-up grants, and they're like, wait, you have to go through our community, and it gets drawn out. So we're making sure that we've front-loaded all of that so that we can get these projects hopefully installed or implemented by the end of 2022 this year. So
I just, well, can I ask another question?
Sure,
and make
absolutely.
another, okay. And I also want to quickly make a point, that thing about getting your application in early. I applied for some, I don't remember when that was, and I made a mistake, quite a large mistake in my application process, and there wasn't time to make, so I actually wasn't considered as a result of a mistake. So do that, like she said, put it in early so that the mistakes can be repaired. And then what was the other thing? Oh, you know what? The public art aspect of it, I'm interested, you know, what struck me first was, because I do two different things. One is painting in regards to environmental issues, but I also am an illustrator, and the project that I submitted before, I believe, was in relationship to that, but that would be not so much a public art thing, a children's book related thing, I suppose.
Unless you're doing an event around the book and its issues.
Oh, interesting.
Or installing large blow-ups of illustrations in a storefront.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So there's lots of ways to bring attention to artwork, and we're trying to expand that and what people realize and identify as public art.
Yeah, great. Terrific. Well,
if you have questions, I'll follow up with an email after this workshop today.
Yeah.
So feel free to reach out to me. I am going to be traveling the next week, and you'll get a message that I'm out of office, but I will be answering questions since I'm leaving right before a deadline. So that's just something that I need to do. So I will be answering questions over the next week.
Thanks. That's helpful.
You're welcome. Yeah. So insurance you may need to provide, but we'll work with you to make sure that's in your grant budget, and hopefully it can be provided by the site itself, which is sometimes a possibility. And then we just have to state, you know, publicly that you can't use this for re-granting to someone else. The sole intent to present a fundraising activity, lobbying, advocating, or campaigning for political candidates or elections, including ballot measures, and promotion of religious views or advocating for one religion over another. That, however, I know there's a slight caveat when we start to get into tribal traditions, and those will work through that. There's actually wiggle room there to be able to allow certain projects that might come out of religious traditions, as long as you're not recruiting or advocating for one religion over another. I will stop with that. Now I'm going to click into the application. Any other questions before we get into the actual application? Yes, Barbie. You're still unmuted. You'll have to unmute.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't mean, what kind of insurance were you talking about?
Sometimes it's personal liability insurance if you're going to be working on a site.
Okay.
And so we will share, we have been through this and been able to identify some affordable options for that. Sometimes it's a few $100s and we make sure that it's integrated
Okay.
into your grant budget. Or performance, if it's an
Sure.
event, sometimes that's part of an insurance that is required. Special event insurance, which is also not that expensive, but we also have some resources when we get to that stage that we'll be able to share.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Thanks.
questions? Okay. Okay, so once you click on that button, get started with your application, you get to Submittable. And so this is a third-party platform, so we don't have access to the back end of what you're working on. We don't get to see anything until you actually submit it, because this lives on a server in Montana, basically, or elsewhere. So you'll see when you get in here that there are two opportunities currently open. So here's the English application for ArtSurround, and here's the Spanish application for ArtSurround. And so you just hit apply. Oops, I haven't signed in. If you signed in before, it'll ask you to. If you haven't before, you create your username. And so you'll create your username if you haven't used Submittable before, and it's basically filling out your basic information. The email address that you use when you sign up is considered your user email, and that's the main one that we communicate with you. Even though we ask for your email again in the application, your user email is what Submittable automatically uses when we send out group messages like update, we'll let you know by a certain date that, you know, whether or not your application has been funded. So that kind of communication goes through your user account email. So once you're set up, save address and continue, now you're actually in to this application. Now I will say, because I went through this yesterday, we won't see it, but there's a quick eligibility form that says, are you a resident? Are you over 18 with work permission in the United States? You'll answer yes. And then are you an artist or cultural practitioner? Answer yes. If you answer no, it will stop your application and say you're not eligible to participate. Once you hit yes, you'll come into this application. Once again, you can't see it again because I've already filled out that section. But once you hit that, then it'll say proceed. And here we are into the application. Section 1 is about you. So your last name. If you work under a single name for your profession, I would say put your legal name here, because this is how we'll identify you. If we contract with you, you're welcome to put, you know, if you have a stage name or performing name or writing, you know, a pen name, you're welcome to put it in parentheses here so we know what you like to be called. Optional are your preferred pronouns. Your email address, which if it can match your user profile, that would be best. And then your physical home address. We don't share this information. This is just to verify that you are a Sonoma County resident. And so please fill out your physical home address, your residence. And then based on your home address, we need you to select your Sonoma County supervisorial district. So if you don't know that, whether you're in districts 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, there's a lookup link right here in the application. Click that and you enter your residential address to find your supervisor. There were some slight changes in the last redistricting after the last census. And so those have been updated. So if you live on a borderline area, you might want to make sure that your supervisor is still your supervisor. And then your mailing address, if you have a PO box number or you have your mail sent otherwise so somewhere else, please put in there. This is a required field. Anything with a little red asterisk is required. And so if it's the same, please write in same as above. Your daytime telephone number. And then here's one, you can only choose one. So that's why we ask your primary arts and culture discipline best fit. You can look at our expanded descriptions to see if there's one that really pulls forward for you. If you're are truly at heart a multidisciplinary artist, you work in performance and visual arts or any other combination, please click multidisciplinary arts or other, and you will have 9A will appear, and you have 5 words to describe what you are, because we don't want much more than what you see in these bolds. So, you know, maybe you say performing and design arts, or visual and traditional folk art. And so if that helps you at all, any questions about that? Pause for a second. Okay, and then this last item is optional. This is really if you have a website or social media, any social media accounts that are dedicated solely to your or primarily to your arts and cultural work, you're welcome to share those websites or social media accounts. So if you're really put your work up on Instagram all the time, you're welcome to put that there. You're welcome to use, this is a descriptive field. This field doesn't have where it can only be in the format of URL. And so you could say maybe my commercial work hyphen with your URL or social media, artistic work, my studio, or my work with this arts organization or with this whatever, as long as it's pertinent to your creative work. We'd like to see it. We don't want to see it if it's your personal Facebook page that's just your friends and family. But if you have any of those, you're just welcome to share as many of those as you would like or need to share. Any questions about the top part about you? Okay, now we'll go to the meat of the application. For numbers 11, 12, and 13, we've started doing this in our last program, the Arts and Cultural Equity Fellowship Grant, where you are allowed to either do a written response or a video response. You're welcome to videotape yourself talking about this, and it does not have to be this can be something you do on your smartphone. It doesn't have to be a highly produced video with high production values. As long as we can hear you and see you and understand what you're saying, you won't be dinged for, if it's not like ready for the Oscars short film category. That's not an issue. And so you have 3 options under these 3 to either do a written response, and the box will pop up when you click that, a video upload. My only caution here, if you want to do a lot of video uploads in an application, I think it's only 500 megabytes for the entire application. So make sure they're smaller size videos if you're going to do those. The other option, if you do have a really high quality video you'd like to share for these elements, you can submit the video link. And so that will bring up, you can just put up YouTube, Vimeo, or any other platform where you have a video living. So you can put that there. And so let's talk about these 3 questions because they're probably the most important. So briefly describe who you are as an art and culture worker and your why behind your creative work. If you have experience in public art or community art processes, you can include a description of that experience here. That's part of who you are and why you do what you do. include how you have learned to do your work, whether through hands-on learning, formal training, or education, participating in community or family traditions, or any other ways of learning. So that is getting about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. So we want to, we started asking this to try to get to the different ways that people come to be culture workers and creatives and artists. Someone brought up last night in the workshop, they said there's really nowhere to show in the application what I do. And that's actually where I will show you what to do in the portfolio, because there's a way to describe the works that you're sharing with us. So that's your way to show off what you do. But here we want to know how you learned it, so you have room to tell us about what it is you do here as well, and how you learned to do it. Any questions about that? And then number 12, if you have experience working collaboratively in community, either through your artwork, so this is a little bit of a repeat for people that touched on it above, please describe it here. So if this is not about your artwork, if you have been a community organizer, if you've been involved in your church, if you have done any type of community work or collaborative work, this is a chance to tell about it, because perhaps you have not done that in your artwork world. Perhaps it is something that you are just emerging with and want to explore. So that's where we say, if not, please describe what you as an artist or cultural bearer would like to learn about working collaboratively in community. And so if you've already feel like you've exhausted it in number 11, you can just give a little bit more detail about maybe where you want to go with that work in this spot. Otherwise, we want to know what you want to learn about it and what your feelings are about working collaboratively in community. And then the last one is more about you and describing the potential impact that participating in the artist cohort training and grant might have on you, your career or artistic goals, your art form, or cultural work, and or your community. So if you're in a stage in your career where you've been doing this work for decades, your answer might be about learning about your current community or work, engaging differently in a new community, how you want to expand your work. If you are we have some pretty amazing young artists in the community that are doing this type of work. It's about where you want to go with this work and how you want to expand it and learn more skills. So in general, your career and artistic goals. Any questions about these three narratives? Okay. And then here's that part that I started to talk about a little bit up at the beginning when we were describing the fact that City of Santa Rosa is coming to us with funding. So we know for sure that there will be City of Santa Rosa projects. So we are asking if you have a project in mind already, because they are not dictating the projects, you can say, yes, I really want to do a storefront installation at this business at this location, and you can describe it in a few sentences. You have about 150 words there, so it's about a decent paragraph to be able to describe that. Or if you have you've been eyeing a corner of a park in Petaluma and you absolutely think that that is where some work needs to happen, you can tell us yes in a Sonoma County location outside of Santa Rosa. So we just want to make sure that they're separated, because the ones that say yes in Santa Rosa are going to get special attention from the Santa Rosa Public Art Committee folks. And you are also welcome, before I say anything more about that, to say, no, I'm just here because I want to in on this, and I want to, once we get in on it and we see a space, find out what space I'm being assigned, we'll work to develop a project. So you're basically sending, this is basically like a request for qualifications. That's what we'd look at this. Like, I want you to know who I am, what I do, and this is the kind of work I do. That's fine. We'll still be matching people to, we have really a wide array of locations that, and types of locations that will occur. And so you'll see this note if you choose either Santa Rosa or another Sonoma County location. If you have already created designs or mock-ups for what you'd like to propose for either Santa Rosa or another Sonoma County location, you're more than welcome to include it as one of your work sample uploads. So if you've already sketched out an idea or you have something mocked up, you're welcome to include that. And if you want to propose something and you propose something and you haven't done that yet, I would really suggest making sure that your art samples, your work samples, give the reviewers a sense of where you might take that. So similar work or work in a similar vein to what you're proposing, at least one example. So that can help them envision what your final proposal might end up being. Any question about that special portion? Okay. And then I talked at the beginning of the workshop about Springboard for the Arts. I'll be sending everybody this link in the email after today's workshop. Whether or not you have taken this, we've promoted it a little bit in our newsletter, shared this a little bit. But if you can do the individual artist training, we recommend it just because it's kind of will get us into the common language that the advocate cohort is doing and learning separately, because they do a separate training for community leaders and arts leaders that they are all taking. And so because you'll be getting if you can't take it, that's fine. We just want to be able to know that you cannot take it. So we want to make sure that we know this is not entirely accessible. Some people have day jobs they can't take time off from. So if that is true, that's fine. We just want to know that you just aren't able to access that. And it's free. It is a free 3-hour training. And that will impact you if you say no. That doesn't take you down in the scoring or anything like that. So, but recommended. Activity and uploads. Section 3, the final is uploading work and describing it. So 6 samples of your arts and cultural work. So they can be any combination of images, video, audio, documents, examples of relevant prior or current creative work. Recent is better. But however, if you are returning to an art form you haven't been doing in a while and you want to return to it, we'd love to see examples of that work as well. So however you think that most matches what you're talking about in this application, we'd love to see samples of your work. And then here in number 17, we need samples. Oh, and let me just go back up there quickly. Number 16, make sure that you have a descriptive title of anything that you upload. So we don't want, the title of an upload to be 1237579.jpg. So make sure it says perhaps your name and the title of the work or what it is, such as Community Mural by Barbie Watts. So that's the kind of thing that we are looking for. And so in the sample description items, you can do a brief description of the project. And so this is where you get a chance to really show the kind of work you do. And so make sure that you briefly describe it, whether it's a performance piece or if it has a date where it occurred, locations. So however you can describe that piece to help the reviewers know what they're looking at is great. And it'd be great if you could number them or make sure that the titles match what you've uploaded. And then the final upload is your resume or a CV, curriculum vitae. So if you have one for your creative work, that is preferred. But if you do not, a standard resume is fine. Your regular, if you have one for your profession, if you're just emerging in your career, that's fine. Just a simple one. If you're just getting started in your career, just upload a simple resume with your experience to date. And then the last thing before you hit submit is required. Make sure you do 6 samples of your arts and cultural work uploaded. We don't want them all in one document. We want 6 separate samples. That's easiest for our panelists to read and review because they actually see it in a pane and they can swipe between the samples. So don't put them all in one document. We want them in 6 separate files. And it's just a little alert here. And this is one thing that we always check before we put it over to reviewers. Make sure that you upload 6 items. We don't have the capability in this platform to enforce a minimum. So if you upload 1 item, it's going to say that you're fine to send this through. It doesn't stop you if you haven't uploaded 6. You can upload 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items and it'll still let you submit. So that's one of the reasons we go down here and say 6 samples, make sure, double check that you've uploaded 6 separate items. And then just committing to attend the ArtSurround training, except in cases of emergency. And then the terms of use is basically everything in here is true. I'm really a Sonoma County resident and I will proceed with the application once you tell me that I am accepted. So you can hit save draft. You can start it now and leave it as a draft. We don't see your drafts. We don't have the capability in the back end to see your drafts. So the only way you can see what you have put in there is for you to apply. So once you've applied, we'll be able to see your application and start making sure that it's complete. And so that then we can send it on to our viewers after the deadline. Any questions while I have that open? Yes, okay. Madeline?
I think I'm unmuted now, correct?
Oh, I hear you
Okay.
now, yes.
Thank you, good.
Mhm.
It said to show examples from 2018 or later.
Yes.
The main mural that I have in mind right now was done in about 2014. Would
Yeah.
that be acceptable?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, if you do a lot of work, we just want to see the most recent, but if
This
this best relates to what you're
Yeah.
proposing, yeah, if you have a better sample from earlier in your career, then that's
Yeah.
totally fine.
Great.
And I would
thank you.
just say that, and you might want to call that out in the descriptive box. It's an unlimited descriptive box, so we don't want you to go crazy and write a lot, but
Yeah.
you can say that. in
Thank
that
you.
box. Mhm, absolutely. Nicole, I think you have your hand up.
Hi,
Hi.
yeah. I guess I was just wondering if there's any other common mistakes that applicants make, and you went over quite a few to look out for, but
Yeah.
just wondering if there's anything else.
I think the most common is, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but when you see a word count, that's really the depth of explanation we're looking for. It's an opportunity for you to show what you know, what you want to share about yourself. So if it's, if you can tell your story, if it says 300 words maximum and you can tell it beautifully and succinctly in 200 words, that's great. But if you give us 1 or 2 sentences, that's not enough, because we are looking for a certain amount of information, introspection, sharing of who you want to be and where you want to go in the application. And so I would use them as your guide, the word count, for how much information we're looking for. We did up this a little bit for the first one. It's 500. I would say 200 to 300 would be fine if you can tell us about it in that amount of words, but just don't, make sure you answer the question thoroughly. Sometimes that's the other mistake. There's sometimes multiple sections to questions. So make sure you fully answer the question. And that's the first thing that reviewers pick up on. Well, they didn't address this part, So for this application, we're not actually asking for a budget. That's if you're just doing other grant applications in the future, they want to make sure it adds up and that you're being honest about how much things cost, because they are professionals and they say that, you know, you're not paying artists enough, or you're not paying yourself enough, an artist fee. So being honest and clear and succinct about who you are and what you want is probably the best advice I could give. Yes.
Awesome. I also have one more question.
Sure.
In regards to the government or just the grant process, does it cover, are artists responsible to prime their own walls, or is that something that Creative Sonoma offers as prep work in advance?
That would be under the auspices of the site that you're matched to.
Okay.
So that may vary. That may depend on the site itself.
Okay.
I would think that some of, especially the government, if it's a publicly owned space, they may be able to provide some of that, at least clean up and prep. But we'll work that out in the contract stage when we accept you into the program, and we'll figure that out site by site.
Okay. And is there any, sorry, just one more question. But is there any preference as far as like hardware, like scaffolding, ladders, or boom? Like, do you guys have a preference for that, or just up to the artist?
It's just up to the artist.
Okay.
And this doesn't have federal funding. And if anybody's done any federal projects, you run into accessibility, you run into historic preservation issues. This does not have that kind of funding. So we won't be looking at attachments other than it's temporary. So these have to be reversible projects. So de-installation at some point, unless the site manager wants it to stay, then they have that option to ask for it to stay. But what you're proposing really to us, and what we're proposing, is a temporary installation. A temporary could be 5 years. So as long as it's reversible.
So Sam, I have a question.
Sure.
I missed the first part of the meeting, and you may have touched on that on this question, but how big are the cohorts supposed to be, and how many different parts of the community are you?
Right, that's a great question. The cohort, we're hoping to have up to 30 artists, but which would mean that some artists would be put into teams, collaborative teams, to co-develop a project for a site. So basically the site owners are going to help choose artists for their locations. And so once we choose the cohort, we will match them to projects, because we really want to get as many people in and part of it as possible. The cohort would meet as a giant cohort. So you would meet all the artists in the training, that live in person. This is in-person training, unless we have any kind of health order that changes that. We are planning on it in person, and we'll of course take any precautions for COVID as needed. But you would be working as a large group and then splitting out in that group if you're working, maybe within towns that you're working in, or you'll be working with other artists potentially on a project. Did I fully answer? Was there another part of that question that I didn't answer?
I just was curious about how many different parts of a community are you interested in, like, local schools, the city.
It's wide open. We have representatives from chambers of commerce. We have some schools. We have tourism, possibly parks. We have municipal locations. So we haven't finished gathering that list, but it will be all types of locations. And throughout the county, we're really hoping that there can be representatives in all corners of the county for the project.
Thanks.
Yeah. Nicole, did you have your hand up again? No. Okay. Barbie.
When we're showing the samples of our arts, uploading that, is that like all the same mediums, or the same, or
Can be
just If we're eclectic, like one of everything or.
Yeah, I would say make sure if you say that you are a performing artist that you don't just upload visual arts, because that will confuse the applicant, the reviewers and us. So if you are proposing something specific, then make sure you have something that kind of gives the reviewers an idea of where you might take that. And then otherwise, if you say you're a multidisciplinary artist and that maybe you want to do a project that involves performance and sculpture, then whatever you have in your portfolio that demonstrates the ways that you can accomplish that, then you're welcome to have a variety of things.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, I am going to end our recording before I say goodbye. So we'll record stop.